Alright, what's up everybody? Today we are going to go over a quick lesson on how to do speed ramping inside Premiere Pro. This is a cool trick where you basically ease the transition from regular speed to either slow-mo or high speed. It's very easy to cut from regular speed to slow-mo by simply cutting your clip, right-clicking, and choosing speed duration. But that's not what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you a new technique that is cool and is going to help you ease that transition. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, this can actually be done in two places. It can be done right here on the clip itself, or if you double click on the clip, if you go up to the effects control window, you can do it in time remapping right here. Now, we're not going to do that, and I'll show you why. After I show you how to do it on the clip, I'll show you why I don't do it up here. So let's go ahead and do it on the timeline, and then if you want to stick around and see how to do it in the effects control window, I will show you that. So we've got skateboarder here doing a trick well worthy of being slow mode. I've gone ahead and marked the spot where I want it to be at full slow-mo, meaning right when he's about to catch the board with his hand and his feet, and you can see I've dropped a marker right here on the clip just by hitting the M key. That's totally optional. You don't have to do that. Let's go ahead and prepare this clip now for being slow mode. Now, one important thing I have to mention is that ramping slow-mo will not affect your audio. Now, for skateboarding, that creates a problem because when he lands, the sound isn't going to be synced up with the landing, but I'll show you a trick to help fix that. Let's go ahead and enable this for speed ramping. So the first thing I like to do is give myself some space. Trying to do time remapping like this is not feasible, okay? So make sure to hit Command plus a few times and then go ahead and hit the plus key as well and give yourself some room. The more the better. I like to make it fit on my screen, but I like to have it as tall as possible. And the fact is, when we slow this down, it's actually going to get longer, so it's not a bad idea to give yourself as much room as you can. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and head up to the little FX badge right here in the corner. It's in the upper left-hand corner of the clip, and I'm going to simply right-click and choose Time Remapping. It's worth mentioning you can also do opacity and motion changes right here on the clip if you've never done that before. But I'm going to go for Time Remapping, and I'm going to select Speed. Now, you'll notice that this line through my clip now becomes a timeline, meaning that if I drag this up, it'll speed up the clip, and if I drag it down, it will slow down the clip. Now, before we do any of that, this clip was shot at 120 frames a second. So let's go up to our sequence settings and just make sure that it's in a 30 frames a second timeline. You don't want to do this at 120 frames a second, meaning if you shot at 120, you don't want to edit at 120. If you drag the clip in by default, it will make your sequence whatever the clip was shot at. So you have to go in and manually make sure you change your time base to either 29.97, 30, 24, any of the time bases that we use for output. Okay, now that we got that done, we've got our line converted to a speed line. Now we just need to add in some controls that will allow us to slow down the portion of the clip we want to. And the way we do that is by holding down Command and clicking right here on this line. There we go. So you notice that I clicked right there and it put a little playhead right there. It's actually not a playhead, it's a time remapping indicator. So let's go ahead and got that one there, and we're going to want to be up to full speed by the time he lands. So I'm going to put another one right there by just holding down Command and clicking on that line. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to select just the audio and put a cut right before he lands. I'm just going to hit Command K, and we'll talk about that later. But for now, I've added 2 points, and I can come and grab the section right in the middle and drag it down to create a slow mode section. Now, if you shot at 60 frames a second and you're editing at 30, you probably don't want to go much slower than 50%. Since I shot at 120, I can go a little bit further. Well, I can go a lot further. But in this case, we'll just start with 50. So right now we have slow-mo, but it's not ramped slow-mo. And you can see right here by this transition, it goes from regular time to slow-mo and right back to regular time. So the act of ramping is done by taking these little markers here and pulling them apart. And you can see that I'm just grabbing and dragging. Now it's wanting to like overlap them in a weird way. So make sure that you are dragging them in the right direction. And now you can see that we've got some easing to our slow-mo. You can see there's a period of time where from here to here, it's easing its way down to 50%. And if we look at that, looks nice and smooth. Now you'll notice our audio is dropped out, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And so at that point, you've created ramped slow-mo. There's one additional thing we can do to fine-tune our slow-mo here. And that would be to actually click on one of these markers, and you'll see a little Bezier handle pop up right on your line. Now I'm going to take that and just kind of drag it to the left a little bit, and you can see that it is easing the transition. And what that means is that if you look at it now, it's gonna slow-mo slower, and then it gets to the middle, and it's going to slow down considerably, and then it's going to ease to that final 50%. If you've ever worked with After Effects, this is just easing keyframes, and it works great. So now let's take a look at it. It's pretty good. The only issue I have is when he lands on that ramp, I want him to be going full speed right away. And you'll notice that right there he lands, and we're still slow mode to about there. So I'm going to find that landing spot, and I'm going to kind of just use the waveform to help me find it. And I'm going to put the last adjustment spot right over that, and then maybe drag this one back just a bit as well. And notice that if I move one, it does move the other. So I got to do a little fine tuning in here. Now let's take a look at it. All right, that's how I like it. So that is ramped slow-mo, doing it on the clip itself. Now, just to show you a quick example, if I drag this clip back out and I come over to the clip, double click on it, go to the effects control window, I can essentially do the same thing right here. By turning on, well, by default, speed remapping, time remapping is already turned on. So what I would do in this case is I would find the spot where I want to slow-mo, and I would come over here and click the Add Keyframe button. If I click that, you'll see there's an adjustment point right there, and if I go a little further, I can click it again, and there's my second adjustment point. Now, this is why I don't like to do it in this window, and it's just simply a lack of space. If I start to drag this down a little bit, right there, we're at 50%, and then I can grab these, and I'm just trying to grab half of them, and you can see it's doing this weird reversing thing. There we go. Make sure you grab the one on the outside, drag it out, and you can adjust the easing as well by clicking on one of those points and adjusting this handle. Now, essentially, we've done the same thing we did. If we look at it, seems to be working, but again, I just feel confined. I don't feel like I have as much space as I want to. If I try to zoom in by putting the playhead right over the middle, and I zoom in, you see it very quickly disappears from the screen. Very difficult to work under these conditions. As you can see, it's just overall buggy and glitchy. So, not a big deal. The fact is, down here, I have full control over the size of my clip, the length of my clip. I can make this as big as I need to so that I can view it clearly. And there we go. Control of where it happens and where it ends. So, the one thing that I do on top of ramping my slow-mo is I take note of the audio. As we can see here looking at these waveforms, there's clearly the sound of him landing. Now what I usually do is I'll cut the audio right before the landing. As long as I line up the audio with the end of my clip, this will be in time. You will notice that our sound goes dead for a minute, and that's usually not that big of a deal. He's in the air, so there's not a lot of sound anyways. So what I tend to do is just fade this down for a second, knowing that there'll be music behind it that'll cover up that sound. And then we get the sound of the landing. So there are ways to try to fill this in, but I haven't found any that I feel work all that well. And so there we go. We have ramped slow-mo with just a few clicks.